Lansdowne Station is a tiny speck on the map of rural Nova Scotia, a place where the whisper of trees often drowns out the infrequent sound of car engines. Life here unfolds at a measured pace, amidst dense forests, dirt roads, and a sparse scattering of houses. Locals know each other by name, and nature is an integral part of their existence. On one such quiet street, Garlock Road, the Sullivan Martell family had resided for the past 2 years. Malia Brooks Murray, her common-law husband Daniel Martell, their shared 16-month-old daughter, and Malia's 2 older children from a previous relationship, 6-year-old Lily and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. Lily, like many girls her age, adored the color pink. Her wardrobe often featured pink sweaters and boots. Jack, her younger brother, still in diapers, loved his blue rubber boots adorned with dinosaurs and showed a keen interest in insects. The biological father of the older children was reportedly under house arrest and not involved in their lives. The morning of Friday, May 2, 2025, began like any other in this rural idyll. However, what began as an ordinary day would soon unravel into a perplexing, chilling mystery that gripped not only the region, but also resonated far beyond. Initial reports reaching the authorities painted a picture of innocent child's play gone awry. 2 young children, last seen playing at home, had presumably just put on their rubber boots and slipped out through the sliding back door, disappearing into the vast, unforgiving wilderness that bordered their property. According to the early testimony of their stepfather, Daniel Martell, around 8:30 a.m., the children were playing in another room while he and Malia were in their bedroom with their youngest daughter, attending to her feeding. He recalled hearing Jack in the kitchen and Lily peeking into their room a few times. Then, a period of silence, estimated by Daniel to be about 20 minutes, prompted him to check on the children. The kitchen was empty. The children were nowhere to be found in the house. The only clue, he would later state, was the absence of their rubber boots. He assumed they had quietly slipped out. However, another version soon emerged, one closer to what Malia would later tell the media. According to this account, both parents were still in the main bedroom, not fully awake, but aware of the children playing in another room. Malia described herself as drifting in and out of sleep. When she finally awoke to the silence, alarm bells sounded. Importantly, both parents consistently maintained that they had not actually seen Jack that morning, only heard him. The description of his clothing, a brown shirt and pants, a diaper, was based on what he had been wearing the previous evening. This discrepancy, whether the parents were actively tending to the baby or just waking up, introduced an element of ambiguity. Daniel later added a detail. He claimed he had asked Lily and Jack to be quiet several times so the baby could continue sleeping. This raised a new question. Was the baby eating, as initially suggested, or sleeping? For a 16-month-old, these activities might not be mutually exclusive, but the shift in emphasis was noted. The timing of the 911 call also became a point of contention. The children's paternal biological grandmother, Belinda Gray, stated that Malia and Daniel discovered the children missing and called 911 around 9:40 a.m. However, according to some reports, a police dispatch log noted that Jack and Lily went missing around 8:00 a.m. These crucial 20 minutes of silence before the discovery, as Daniel termed it, became a focal point. If the children had been unheard for only that long, how far could they realistically have wandered, especially if they had to navigate a fence or unfamiliar terrain? The most puzzling detail was the state of the rear sliding door. Daniel noticed it was closed when he realized the children were gone. This, he pointed out, was unusual. Typically, he said, Lily and Jack would leave the door wide open after going in or out, and he often had to remind them to close it. The fact that it was found closed, presumably after they had exited, seemed odd. Along with this, their rubber boots were missing. Pink ones for Lily, blue dinosaur-themed ones for Jack, leading to the assumption they'd put them on before venturing outside. Daniel also believed Lily had taken her white, strawberry-patterned backpack. As soon as Daniel Martell realized Lily and Jack were not in the house, his first instinct, he claimed, was to jump in his vehicle and begin scouring the nearby dirt roads and culverts, a frantic, independent search. Meanwhile, Malia Brooks Murray contacted 911, officially setting in motion a large-scale emergency response. By the time Daniel returned, Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP) officers were already on the scene. The authorities launched their search almost immediately. The operation quickly escalated, drawing in helicopters, drones, and an estimated 160 emergency service personnel. Volunteer ground search and rescue teams, The Civil Air Search and Rescue Association, the Nova Scotia Guard, the Salvation Army, and various specialized RCMP units, including police dogs, drone operators, and the Major Crimes Unit, converged on the rural area. Daniel recounted that upon his return, police initially told him he wasn't allowed back into the woods to continue searching. However, he said a man in military gear subsequently permitted him to re-enter, so he jumped the fence and resumed his personal efforts, describing himself as running through the woods, screaming their names until I was hoarse, and wading through waist-deep water, often ahead of the official search parties. Despite the immediate and comprehensive nature of the search, the terrain itself presented a formidable challenge. The area surrounding the family home was described as not just wooded, but densely forested and dangerous, making movement difficult even for trained professionals. Compounding these difficulties, the weather in the region had recently been rainy and nasty, rendering the ground wet, slippery, and conditions generally unfavorable for both the searchers and, ominously, for anyone lost within it. One of the critical early decisions made by law enforcement was regarding the type of alert issued. While a vulnerable missing person alert was issued to the public on Saturday, May 3rd, an Amber Alert was not activated. Police stated this was because they did not believe at that stage that the children had been abducted. Their working theory was that Lily and Jack had simply wandered away on their own and become lost. This distinction was significant. An Amber Alert, typically reserved for suspected abductions of children under 18, where sufficient descriptive information is available, carries a wider, more urgent reach. Malia and Daniel, however, were vocal in their disagreement with this assessment, pushing for an Amber Alert. They feared abduction was a real possibility and felt a broader alert was necessary to ensure everyone in the wider area was aware and vigilant. Malia expressed that people had texted her saying they weren't even aware the children were missing until informed by others. During the ground search, there were small, fleeting moments of hope. On Saturday, May 3rd, the day after the children disappeared, searchers found a possible footprint, leading to an expansion of the search in that area. However, nothing came of it. It was unclear if they were ever able to confirm or deny whether it was a footprint at all, let alone one matching a child's size. Daniel, in one account, mentioned 2 boot prints found about 10 meters from the home in the backyard. In the ensuing days, Malia and Daniel gave several interviews, attempting to convey their pain and their version of events to the public. "I'm just trying to stay as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them, and I want them home," Malia said with difficulty in one of her first statements. Both parents insisted on the abduction theory, arguing it was plausible due to their children's extreme sociability. "They'll talk to anyone. They want to go with anyone," Daniel said. "They're just looking to have as much fun as they can." Malia echoed him. "They're so sweet. They'll talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off." This portrayal supported their theory that the children might have willingly gone with a stranger without resisting. Malia mentioned that both children were on the autism spectrum, but emphasized they were very far from nonverbal, were talkative, and, according to her, would strike up conversations with every single person they encountered at the grocery store. However, these assertions conflicted with other sources. The children's aunt reportedly described both children as nonverbal in a social media post. A teacher who had worked with Lily and Jack offered a more nuanced view, stating they weren't shy but were minimally verbal. This discrepancy was significant. Were these outgoing children who might easily engage with an unfamiliar adult, or were they less communicative, perhaps making a quiet, unnoticed departure or abduction scenario seem more plausible from a different angle? Their bus driver also commented, noting Lily often let out high-pitched squeals and was a bit of a drama queen, while Jack was very chatty and would throw his boots to get attention if ignored. The question of their school attendance also became muddled. Daniel initially told investigators they hadn't gone to school on Thursday or Friday because Lily had a cough. Later, he reportedly said they hadn't been to school all week. However, a bus driver and a teacher later confirmed seeing Lily in school on Monday, April 28th. Based on context, the date May 28th mentioned in one source is a clear error. This inconsistency about when they were last verifiably seen by individuals outside the family home raised further questions about the precise timeline leading up to their disappearance. The physical layout of their home environment also presented a puzzle. Aerial photos revealed the backyard was fenced in. While the fence was described as not the sturdiest and possibly having gaps, it led many to wonder how 2 young children could have slipped out unnoticed. Adding to this, a trailer was situated on the property near the backyard, reportedly occupied by Daniel's mother and brother. This trailer was very close to the sliding door from which the children were said to have exited. If Daniel's relatives were home that morning, they too apparently heard and saw nothing unusual. The strain of the ongoing search and mounting public scrutiny appeared to take a toll on the family unit, leading to a significant development just a day after Lily and Jack were reported missing. On Saturday, May 3rd, Malia Brooks Murray decided to leave the Garlock Road home. She took her 16-month-old daughter and went to stay with her own mother elsewhere in the province. The reasons cited for Malia's departure pointed to severe internal pressures. Reports suggested that her family was blaming Daniel Martel for the children's disappearance. This led to an argument involving multiple family members, culminating in Daniel's mother, who also resided on the property, allegedly asking Malia to leave. Soon after, it was confirmed by Malia's mother that she and Daniel had, in fact, broken up amidst the unfolding crisis. Daniel would later mention that Malia had blocked him on social media, though it was also stated she had simply deactivated her Facebook profile. With Malia largely removed from the immediate vicinity of the search and the home, Daniel became the more public face of parental anguish and effort. He gave several interviews, and in one notable exchange, he spoke about his desire for a polygraph test. "That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for," he stated, explaining he had requested it early on. When asked why he felt it was necessary, Daniel replied, "I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else." His insistence on the polygraph, while potentially a sign of wanting to prove his innocence, also highlighted the deep fractures and accusations that had apparently developed between him and Malia's family. During one of the searches, K-9 units reportedly tracked the children's scent, but the trail ended abruptly at the road. This suggested the children might have reached the road, and if so, what happened next? Daniel himself had stated that Lily and Jack had never crossed the street by themselves, nor had they ever gone into the woods alone, deepening the mystery of how their scent could have led to the roadside. Amidst these domestic puzzles, an external lead did surface: a suspicious black Honda CR-V. A witness reported seeing a man in his mid-50s, bald with a mustache, driving the vehicle away from the permanently closed Lansdowne Recreation Center, less than a mile from the Sullivan Martel home, not long after the children went missing. This sighting was relayed to authorities, offering a tangible, albeit unconfirmed, thread for the abduction theory the parents favored. Nevertheless, as questions mounted about the events within and around the Garlock Road home, and with Daniel's prominent scratch on his face, which he explained as a result of searching through dense woods, the parents' unwavering insistence on abduction felt increasingly set against a backdrop of troubling inconsistencies. On Wednesday, May 7th, 5 days after Lily and Jack were last seen, the RCMP made a sobering announcement: the large-scale active search would be scaled back. According to officials, teams would now focus on researching specific areas that had already been combed. The reason? Survival was no longer considered likely. Given the children's ages, the dangerous terrain, and the poor weather conditions, authorities acknowledged that the chance of finding them alive had dropped significantly. The mission was no longer about rescue. It had shifted to recovery. When transitioning from an active search to a scaled-back search, the probability of survival is taken into consideration, the statement read. "I want to assure you that our missing persons investigation continues. We're not packing up and we're not giving up. We'll continue to investigate and chase leads for as long as and as hard as we have to." Daniel Martel, in an interview around this time, still clung to hope, questioning why nothing, absolutely nothing, from Jack's pull-up to her backpack or any of her belongings at all, had been discovered if they were in the woods. Throughout the initial days of the search, and underscored at this press conference, was the consistent involvement of the RCMP's Major Crimes Unit. While police officials often state that treating a missing person case as suspicious from the outset is standard procedure, especially with young children, the sustained presence of major crimes fueled public and media speculation that investigators were looking at more than just a case of children getting lost. When pressed during the May 7th conference to elaborate on whether they had detected any criminal activity, police remained cautious. "When somebody goes missing, we will look at all the details. We have to automatically consider, are there people that have different charter implications? So we will automatically start to consider what evidence is pointing us towards a suspicious nature. Again, I can't comment more than that, but every missing person case, we would approach it from the same process." The announcement of the scaled-back search marked a somber turning point. officially acknowledging the likelihood of a tragic outcome and shifting the narrative from a desperate race against time to a methodical and likely prolonged search for answers, and, heartbreakingly, for the children themselves, in whatever state they might be found. As time went on with no trace of Lily and Jack, online speculation intensified. Conflicting statements from their parents only fueled public curiosity. One widely discussed rumor involved a party allegedly held at the family's home on Garlock Road just days before the children went missing. A local resident claimed the house had a reputation as a drug house, and that they weren't even aware children lived there. According to this person, the driveway had been packed with cars late into the night, until at least 2 a.m., suggesting a large gathering. This led to theories that the children might have accidentally come into contact with drugs or another harmful substance. Meanwhile, others focused on Daniel Martel's behavior in interviews. Some noticed he appeared to use the past tense when speaking about the children, saying, for example, "Jack just absolutely loved bugs and dinosaurs." While it may have been a slip, it caught the attention of online sleuths. Despite the official scaling back of the large-scale search, the investigation was far from over. Investigators pledged to continue to investigate and chase leads for as long as and as hard as we have to, appealing for anyone with information to come forward. However, the announcement marked a grim turning point. Hope of bringing Lily and Jack home safe and sound had diminished to a faint whisper. The sense of deepening shadows intensified on Friday, May 9th, exactly 1 week after the children were reported missing. Reports, though unconfirmed officially, indicated a heightened police presence back at Daniel Martel's Garlock Road residence. Rumors circulated that authorities were conducting a search underneath the home. While the outcome of this alleged search wasn't immediately clear, its very occurrence signaled that investigators were leaving no stone unturned, even those uncomfortably close to the family. The Lansdowne Station community and a wider audience captivated by their story remained in tense anticipation. Could Lily and Jack, young and perhaps with developmental differences affecting their understanding of danger, have simply wandered into the dense, unforgiving Nova Scotia woods and succumbed to the elements? The decision to scale back the search implicitly pointed towards this scenario. Or were they abducted, as their parents insisted, perhaps by the man in the black Honda CR-V seen near the closed recreation center? This lead, while reported, seemed to have gained little public traction from investigators. The third, most sinister possibility, fueled by the inconsistencies in family turmoil, was that something had happened to the children much closer to home, involving those tasked with their care. Days turned into weeks, but the mystery of Lily and Jack Sullivan's disappearance remained a raw, open wound for the Lansdowne Station community. The official status of Lily and Jack, according to the latest available information, was still missing. No trace of them, alive or deceased, had been publicly announced. Malia Brooks Murray, the children's mother, having left the Garlock Road home, had largely retreated from the public eye, presumably grappling with her loss and the breakdown of her relationship with Daniel Martel. Daniel Martel, the children's stepfather, remained a more visible figure, at least in the initial aftermath. His interviews, his presence during the early searches, and his public call for a polygraph test painted a complex picture. For investigators, the challenge was immense. They were confronted with a frustrating lack of concrete physical evidence directly linking anyone to a crime or definitively pointing to the children's whereabouts. The conflicting narratives from the primary witnesses, Malia and Daniel, created a quagmire of inconsistencies that made establishing a definitive sequence of events incredibly difficult. The scent dogs losing the trail at the roadside, the ambiguous boot prints, and the disputed pink blanket were tantalizing, but ultimately inconclusive clues. The passage of time, a critical enemy in any missing person's case, further eroded the chances of finding fresh evidence or reliable eyewitness accounts. The silence from the woods was profound, but the unanswered question screamed for resolution. Will the truth about what happened to these two young children ever surface? Will their bodies, if the worst is to be assumed, ever be recovered from the silent, sprawling woods that seemed to hold their secrets so tightly? These are the questions that continue to haunt not only their family and community, but also the investigators tasked with solving a case where every lead seemed to dissolve into the dense Nova Scotia undergrowth. Until then, their disappearance serves as a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly innocence can vanish, leaving behind only a void filled with questions and an unbearable lingering sorrow. The investigation continues, but the weight of the unresolved mystery hangs over Lansdowne Station like a perpetual silent echo.